إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين به ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أدى الأمانة وبلغ الرسالة ونصح الأمة وكنا على ذلك من الشاهدين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم إلى يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. We bear witness that there is no deity but Allah, and we bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is the final messenger. We ask Allah to send his peace and blessing on the Prophet ﷺ, on those who follow him, his family, and all of those who follow them until the day of judgment, like he had done on prior prophets, Prophet Ibrahim and the progeny of prophets. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum. Let me just remind you before we go into the khutbah, inshallah, that we are still living under very extenuous situations with the pandemic. And IslamiCity is only giving this service for those who are truly and genuinely not able to go to the masjid. And as you know that not being able to go under these circumstances is totally allowed in Islam. So you do not have to go to Islam, but you do not have to pray Jum'ah either. But we are providing this only as a service for those who really do not have any opportunity to go to the masjid. There is no exception. If this service is not available and you can go to the masjid, you have got to go. It's not an either or situation at this point in time, inshallah. And let me remind myself and everybody that there are medical reasons why people may not be vaccinated. Some people have a serious, allergy or reaction. Some people may say a religious claim. From a religious point of view, we as Muslims, we say, or at least what the scholars are saying, medical scholars and health scholars, go get vaccinated to protect yourself. However, should you choose not to get vaccinated, there is also a choice to be respected. Though the scholars say go get vaccinated, that is better. If somebody chooses, we do not want to cancel people, cancel or not make them like Muslims just because they chose not to. There is still a choice that is to be respected, regardless if we disagree among one another. Okay, let's go back to the khutbah, inshallah. And I forgot to start, of course, with the very famous openings of our khutbahs, as the Prophet ﷺ had taught us, when he said, "Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu ittaqullaha haqqa tuqatihi wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا." And finally, يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. Allah says in Surah An-Nisa, "O mankind, be conscientious of your sustainer, who has created you out of one living entity, and out of it created its mate, and out of the two spread abroad a multitude of men and women. And remember, conscious of Allah, in whose name you demand your rights from one another, and of these ties of kinship. Verily, God is ever watchful over you. O you have attained to faith, remain conscious of Allah, and always speak with a will to bring out only what is just and true. He will cause your deeds to be virtuous and will forgive your sins. And know that whoever pays heed unto God and his apostle has already attained to mighty triumph." So my khutbah today is something where we're going to go behind closed doors. And when I say behind closed doors, although the khutbah is available online, and people of all backgrounds, faith background, traditions, and belief systems could hear it, Today, it's a talk between Muslims. And sometimes the Quran addresses the Muslims, and sometimes the Prophet ﷺ addressed the Muslims only. And today's talk is a series or collections of the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says, لَيْسَ مِنَّا. And لَيْسَ مِنَّا, and sometimes the hadith would say لَيْسَ مِنِّي. So one is a plural and one is in the singular. When the Prophet ﷺ says, he or she are not among us, or he is not among me, he's not from me. And if we were to give the best English translation to or meaning or the spirit of what it is means, like he is or they are not among us, that means in English usually we say not in my name. When somebody does something in the name of religion or patriotism or democracy or love, but it is the total opposite, you say not in my name. In the English language, we always say also when somebody wants to quote somebody or misquote it or misunderstand a certain teaching, we say, oh my goodness, this person would turn over in his grave, or he would roll into his grave, in his grave. Because people are doing something that is totally the opposite of what that person meant or did. And also in English we say, or in general we'll say, this is not befitting behavior. Something that we do that is really not befitting of the character of that person within a certain group. Let's say within a Muslim, somebody who's a Christian, somebody who wants to say, I am an American, somebody who wants to say, I'm an Arab, I'm a Pakistani, I'm a Latino or a Latina, whatever you want. It is just not befitting sometimes when we behave in a way that is totally opposite to the teaching or to what we claim to do. And the reason why this is important for us to talk behind closed doors, when the Prophet ﷺ specifically addressed us, and did not in this case address all of humanity, though all of humanity could learn about Islam, about what the Prophet is telling Muslims not to do or to do among each other. When the Prophet ﷺ himself said, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه كما يحب لنفسه. None of you will become a believer until you love for your brother, in that case brother or sisters of course, what you love for yourself. And this is the same, by the way, same tradition that is available in other faith traditions. Christians have it all the time. And you say what you love for yourself and what you love for others means what you love in something good, something pious, and so on. So we ask Allah to say, as we say in Arabic, Allahumma ja'alna mimman yastami'una al-qawla fayatba'una ahsana. Oh Allah, make us among those who hear something and always follow the best of it. And wallahi, I would have never talked about this or never imagined that I would have to talk about what I'm about to talk, the hadith. Because I thought that we, the Muslim community, had already transcended these issues. I thought that we have already bypassed. I thought that this is too old of knowledge, too boring of knowledge, too irrelevant of behavior, that come on, brother, get it over and then teach us something new. Tell us something that is beyond what happened 1400 years ago or 200 years ago. And I'm always like to come and talk about the newest invention and innovation and everything and relate it. Until I receive a call from a Christian person. And that person came to me and then called, she says, Dr. Dany, I need your help to come talk to a Muslim. He is one of my, somebody renting an apartment in my house or a room in my house. I said, what is it about? I couldn't believe it. Really, in the 21st century, we should not have this. But I guess I was truly wrong. She said, he's doing witchcraft and sorcery. And she said, come talk to him. I said, I cannot talk to him in reason. I can only talk to him in what the Prophet ﷺ said. And we're going to talk about many hadith about it. But I wanted to start with this hadith because I couldn't believe that in the 21st century, people still are involved in such a thing. When the Prophet ﷺ said, ليس منا من تطير أو تطير له أو تكهن أو تكهن له أو سحر أو سحر له ومن آتى كاهنا فصدقه بما يقول فقد كفر بما أنزل على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. In this hadith, the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is not one of us who seeks omens or has omens interpreted for him, or who practices soothsaying or has it done for him, or who practices sorcery or has it done for him. And whoever goes to a soothsayer and believes in what he says as disbelieved in what was revealed to, he has disbelieved into what the Prophet ﷺ has told us. Means if somebody believes, somebody who is prophesizes the future or telling you what your character is going to be or what's going to happen to you, you would have, not you, as that person would have disbelieved in the very essential teachings of the Prophet ﷺ and of Allah. So all actions related to witchcraft, palm reading, coffee reading, you know, sometimes people read what's on the coffee. Things related to astrology, not astronomy. So know the difference that astronomy is science of the space, astrology is the science. Psychic readers, all of these are totally prohibited in Islam. And very sadly, there are still people who believe in them. And they practice them, they believe in them. And if somebody tells them about it, they say, yeah, this happened to me because this person told me that, you know, somebody knew the future. In one of the very important creeds in Islam, the knowledge of the future is only in the hands of Allah. Even if somebody were to predict the future, in these predictions, we're not talking about somebody saying we're going to have unemployment or we're going to have economic depression and so on. This is a different type of predictions. We're talking about, you know, somebody say, well, you know what, you're going to have an accident in 5 years. You're going to die in 2 years. This is the type of unknown future. That is a person that we are not to believe in. And I'm very sad that to say that even educated Muslims could sometimes be involved in such a behavior. Anyways, another one of the laysa minna collections of the hadith, and there are many, many, many of them. When the Prophet ﷺ says, laysa minna man lam yarham saghirana wa ya'rif sharafa kabirana. In another narration, after wa ya'rif sharafa kabirana, he says, wa ya'rif li'alimina haqqahu. He or she is not among us, one of us, the one who is not kind and merciful to the youth among us and knows how to honor those who are older or senior among us. And if I were to put the third part of this hadith, and knows the due right of respect, basically, to those who are knowledgeable among us. Okay, so you're not one of us, or we are one of the Prophet ﷺ's followers. If we are not merciful to our youth, respectful for our elderly, and honor and recognize and duly respect those who are knowledgeable among us. Sometimes, again, I say this is a behind closed doors khutbah today. Among us today, and very, very sadly, are people who are too busy in their work or too macho, if we were to use the macho, or too proud to think that I want to play with my children and befriend them and smile with them and spend time with them. Be forgiving to them, taking time to listen to them when they talk to us, when they go through challenges in life, when they have certain behaviors or sentiments or belief systems, to say, you know what, this is not very Islamic. And then suddenly we start telling them this is haram and they're going to go to hell and Allah is going to come choke them. It is, where did we learn that? Where did we learn this type of speaking, this type of dialogue between us and our children? And yesterday, and this is not an exaggeration, literally yesterday, another Christian person, a Greek Orthodox, actually, a friend of mine calls me and he says, Dany, you've been my friend for a long time, but I have a friend who was a Muslim and he passed away. And his daughter is struggling a little bit. She's young, she's still a teenager. She's struggling with her Islamic faith. She goes regularly to Quranic reading. And he said, before her father died, he looked at me and he said, please take good care of my daughter. Please make sure that she stays on Islam. And him and her mother, who happened to be Catholic, both want to keep her on Islam, and that's why they sought the help of Muslims. And when I talked to her, she came to me, I am fearful to talk about my fears or my doubts about my religion to my family from my dad's side, who is a Muslim, because they may shun me, they may reject me, they may not accept what I'm doing. And I say, if we only develop a culture of kindness, of understanding, of listening to, learning to listen and deal with and recognize that our youth go through a lot of struggles and they have the right to be treated with ultimate respect. And it is our duty to address them with ultimate respect. Then that is the one who is going to be following the Prophet, because he himself said, لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ لَمْ يَرْحَمْ صَغِيرَنَا. He or she is not one of us if you are not merciful to the youth among us. And the continuation of the hadith and honors those who are elderly. And I had spoken before about elderly care and how our community and our nation is an aging nation, and how in less than a decade from now, we will have 25% of the US population to be senior citizens who are going to be in need of care, financial care, emotional care, medical care, all type of social care. And when the Prophet says we are to honor those who are older than us, he is not talking about the Muslim people among us, but about all people who are elderly. So if we're walking on the street and we see an elderly person, regardless of their religion, their race, their ethnicity, their language, or even their belief system, even if they were not believers in Allah, totally atheist, and we see that they need something, or that we can make a kind gesture toward them, let's open the door for them, pay for their groceries once in a while, carry something for them to their home, knock on their door if they're our neighbors and make sure that they're okay. Talk to them if they are lonely. Go visit them if they get sick in the hospital. That is something that the Prophet ﷺ said, we are not one of him and his followers if we will not know how to respect those who are older than us. And the third part, if we were to take the other narration of the hadith, and those who recognize and duly give credit and respect those who are knowledgeable among us. And of course, the knowledge could be religious knowledge, but it also could be other worldly knowledge, whether it's somebody who is knowledgeable in economics or political science or history or education, or I don't care, nuclear physics or philosophy, whatever is that knowledge. If somebody is recognized to be somebody who reads within a field or nutrition or whatever it is, and is giving his or her opinion, before we start labeling them this and that, let us at least treat them with respect, address them with their proper title, because the Prophet ﷺ ordered us to treat people and address people with their proper. Okay, another one of the hadith, as I said, there are many, many hadiths, but some of the ones that I thought may be interesting to talk about. The Prophet ﷺ says, "Man hamala alayna silaha falaysa minna." And another narration of the hadith, "Man hamala alayna silaha falaysa minna, wa man ghashana falaysa minna." The person who holds weapons, points weapons at us, is not from among us. And the continuation, the one who cheats us is not one of us. And I don't know what's so special about this week. If we just hear the news about what's happening in many parts of the Muslim world, I could start with Lebanon, but we can go along the 60 plus nations around the world that have a predominantly Muslim community, where people show their arms towards their brothers and sisters. We can go from Lebanon to Afghanistan and anywhere in between. You can go east or west or north or south. That is a shame. And here talking about people holding arms against people who are innocent, people who are bystanders, people who are not committing crimes. We're not talking about go catch a criminal and then put them in jail and then try them and then put them under trial in a justful manner. We're talking about people threatening each other, although they both share the same faith. They both share, or they all share the same belief system. They all pray, they all fast, they all give zakat, they all may go to Hajj, they all give the Shahada. But here we go, somebody who is so intimidating to carry the weapon. And the other part of the hadith, it says he is not or she is not among us if you are the one who's cheating us. And there's a beautiful hadith, actually, by the way, I mean, on relating of cheating, it's where the Prophet ﷺ was walking, and then he sees somebody who's selling food or getting food, and then he sticks his hand, like within that food, it's like a pile of food, and he sees that something is wet because his finger probably went into a fruit or so on that may have rotten. You know, when you have a rotten food, you poke your finger and it goes straight into it. But that poked thing, that poked fruit or food, was hidden underneath a pile of food. And the Prophet ﷺ asked the person, when he said to him, he says, "Ma hada ya sahib al-ta'am?" He said, "What is this, seller of this food?" He said, "Asabathu sama." Asabathu means it has rained. Sama means the sky, but here it means that it had rained on it. So the Prophet ﷺ said, "Afala ja'altahu fawqa al-ta'am kay yarahu an-nas." Why don't you, فَمَنْ غَشَّ فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي. Why don't you put it on top? Means don't hide it underneath. Put it on top of it so that people could see it. For those who cheat among us are not from among us, or they're not among me. Cheating is a human nature. I'm not saying it's human that everybody does it, but I'm saying some people do it regardless of their faith. But the Prophet ﷺ is reminding us that we are not to cheat one another. And of course, not to cheat one another as human beings, not as, well, if you're a Muslim, I won't cheat you, but if you're not a Muslim, I'm going to go ahead and cheat you. No, that does not work. We are not Gentiles of other people who say, well, this is how we treat each other, but this is not how we treat people of another faith. No, we are not to cheat anybody so that the Muslims could be the example of those who are trustworthy towards anybody, whose words, when we say, are not cheating, and whose financial transaction, and by the way, cheating, if you read the hadith or the explanation of this hadith, they are not only financial transactions, but any types of cheating is prohibited, of course, whether it's words, whether even cheating about the teaching of Allah. All of this is in ghash. But in this hadith that I just mentioned, it was an example of food. But this is not what we're talking about all the time and the only time. All right. So أقول قولي هذا لي ولكم فيا عباد الله استغفر الله استغفر الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Let us just remember what we opened this khutbah with. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أولئك الذين هداهم الله وأولئك هم أولو الألباب. And also it says, ولو علم الله فيهم خيرا لأسمعهم ولو أسمعهم لتولوا وهم معرضون. This is why we say, اللهم اجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسن. Make us among those who, if we hear something, we will follow it. Otherwise, as I just read, ولو علم الله فيهم خيرا. If Allah knew that there was good in them, in these people who are hearing things but following it, so he's talking about those who are bad. They hear something but they do not follow it. لو علم الله فيهم خيرا لأسمعهم وَلَوْ أَسْمَعَهُمْ لَتَوَلَّوْا وَهُمْ مُعْرِضُونَ. If Allah knew about them, that they were going, that there is good in them, He would have already let them hear something. And if they made them hear it, they would have turned away on, the other one, the other way. That's why we're talking about أولئك الذين هداهم الله وأولئك هم الألباب. Those who hear something that is good and follow it, those, as the ayah says, are the people that Allah guides, and those who are going to be the successful. These are going to be the forerunners, the pioneers among us. Now, how do we address it? And I want to be respectful to the end of the khutbah and the time. Whenever we go into people who are behaving in any of the categories of, we say, laysa minna, you are not one among us. We should not label people as kafara, like you are not disbeliever. We should not accuse them. We are not to tell them you're going to go to hellfire, because these are judgments to Allah, not to us to start judging people. However, the best approach to it is always to come to them in a kind way, in a respectful way, just to gently remind them to say, the Prophet ﷺ told us not to dishonor the elderly. Let us be, kind to the youth. Let us not involve in witchcraft. Let us not threaten each other militarily or in any form of violence. And so let us not cheat among each other, one another, and so on. We do it respectfully. We do it civilly. And after that, we say, oh Allah, make us among those who follow something or hear it and follow it. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك اللهم على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين كأنك حميد مجيد ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. We ask Allah to make us among the pioneers, the kindest, the most loving, but those who will not be outside the millah, the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, but among them, among those who will always follow what is, hear the good and follow it, and see the bad and then avoid it and remind others not to follow it. We ask Allah to cure all of those who are sick among us. We ask Him to bring peace and justice across the world of people, of all people who are suffering, not only those who are Muslims. We ask Him to make us pious, to establish Allah's kingdom on earth with love, compassion, dignity, tolerance, harmony, and respect to all of those among us, people, and all the creatures among us, and all of the plants and animals. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وأقم الصلاة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر. أقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ما كان محمد أبا أحد من رجالكم ولكن رسول الله وخاتم النبيين وكان الله بكل شيء عليما. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اذكروا الله ذكرا كثيرا وسبحوه بكرة وأصيلا. هو الذي يصلي عليكم وملائكته ليخرجكم من الظلمات إلى النور وكان بالمؤمنين رحيما. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. تحيتهم يوم يلقونه سلام وأعد لهم أجرا كريما. يا أيها النبي إنا أرسلناك شاهدا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا وبشر المؤمنين بأن لهم من الله فضلا كبيرا ولا تطع الكافرين والمنافقين ودع أذاهم وتوكل على الله وكفى بالله وكيلا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام. تباركت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام.
Thank you, Dr. Dany, for leading us in this Jummah prayer, and to Brother Mustafa for leading the Salat also, and to Dr. Dany sharing with us the wisdom of the Prophet, his sayings, and how we can implement the understandings of these hadiths that you have shared with us about who is not among us, things that truly displease the Prophet, that are not Islamic in terms of our ethos and how we should be treating others and how we look at the entire world and the community that we live in. And this is the month of Rabiul Awwal, the birth of the Prophet. So may we all understand the message that the Prophet brought for us in the Quran and in his own example also. So we pray that may Allah always guide us. Thank you so much to all of our visitors who have been visiting us and who have joined us today. As Dr. Dany mentioned, we are gradually trying to transition to streaming khutbahs from other masajid also. Instead of trying to do the khutbahs ourselves, if you're able to go to a masjid, we should be attending the masjid, and we'll keep this service for people who are truly not able to attend the masjid for whatever reason. So until next week, inshallah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.